Hey guys, tonight we were heading somewhere colder than your excess heart, darker than your high school poetry phase, and wetter than your socks after one puddle, the Arctic whaling world from the 17th to early 20th centuries. That's right, tonight. We were talking about the terrifying winter life of Arctic whalers, the people who looked at a map, saw a big white herpy ice and said, yeah, that seems like a good place to spend several months slowly freezing next to a bunch of guys named Jebediah. Before we dive face first into Histrious Refrigerator, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this. If you don tea, that's cool. Shuffle off to a different corner of YouTube or where people talk about cryptocurrency or sourdough starters. Leave a comment telling me where you are watching from and what time it is for you. Because somehow strangely it is always 2 a.m. somewhere. Now dim your lights, turn on a fan for that gentle blizzard but not really sound. Get comfortable. Maybe pull on a pair of socks so imaginary polar bears don't nibble your toes, or just because your feet are cold. That's really the main reason, honestly. But before we travel, let us ask some extremely important questions. What is it like to sleep in a wooden ship that is literally being crushed by ice? What does whale blubber smell like when you've been boiling it for 6 weeks straight? Did people back then moisturize, or did they just frost over naturally? How does one politely tell a shipmate, please stop playing the fiddle, the aurora is already screaming? Is there a socially acceptable number of layers of wool underwear? Is it okay to eat seal 3 meals a day, or does that make you weird? And did anyone ever take a break from whaling to simply cry? No? Great! Because now congratulations, you've just woken up somewhere north of Nope, sometime between 1611 and 1914. It's winter. It's night all day. You're on a whaling ship, which is basically a floating popsicle stick, and someone is asking if you'll help scrape frozen blubber off the deck. Good luck. You didn't choose the whaling life. The whaling life chose you. Or, more accurately, economic despair chose you, then shoved you up the gangplank. Back home, your life wasn't exactly glamorous. You weren't sitting on a pile of money, meticulously journaling about your inner growth, or browsing Zillow for an open-concept cottage. You were more likely hauling fish guts for pennies, or staring into a loom until your eyeballs whispered, please stop. By the 17th century and long into the 19th, money was scarce for working people. Meals were beige, and job safety was a rumor. So when a recruiter wandered into town promising adventure, wages, and the thrill of the hunt, you listened. Mostly because he was offering something with the vague scent of hope. Let us talk about recruiters. Forget modern HR. These guys are part salesman, part storyteller, and part man who clearly left out the word danger. They drift through coastal towns like seagulls looking for chips, except you are the chips. They hype the pay, sometimes it's a share of the whale oil profits, sometimes a set wage, and they casually forget to mention you will also be receiving bonus frostbite in all 10 toes, no expiry. You might ask questions like, how cold is it? Will I be safe? Do bowhead whales bite? The recruiter answers with something vague like, oh, you'll be fine. The cold keeps you fresh. Fresh what? Food? Corpse? Not clear. Your family encourages you to go because A, they need the money, B, you need purpose, and C, someone else in the village has already frozen trying it, so now it's sort of a tradition. Plus, people have been doing this since around 1611, when European whalers first pushed into Arctic waters around Greenland and Svalbard. If others did it, surely you can too, right? That is the same logic used for bungee jumping and yogurt. Signing a whaling contract is something. You put your name or your best approximation of it on a sheet promising to obey the captain, follow orders, and not die. That last part is not guaranteed. The terms might include your share of the catch, but it's hard to visualize a 300th of oil profits when you can even visualize surviving the first storm. Fast forward to departure day. You show up with minimal luggage, some worn clothes, a blanket that smells like sheep, and a sense of dread. The ship looks smaller than you imagined, more splinter with mast than vessel. You spot sailors from previous voyages, the ones missing fingers, the ones with haunted 1,000-yard stares, the ones aggressively whittling spoons. You wonder if you should go back home and take up ferret farming instead. Someone shoves you aboard before you finish that thought. The captain gives a speech. It is short and contains 0 comforting words. Something like, "Welcome. You'll work hard, do your job, listen to orders. Hopefully we return." He's wearing a coat made from 80 different animals. You assume this means he is competent or at least committed to a theme. Next, the crew is divided into watch teams. Congratulations. You get the 1 a.m. shift because the boatswain has already decided your face looks night-shaped. You nod politely, unsure whether that's a compliment. Spoiler, it is not. Let's talk expectations. You think you're here to hunt whales. Actually, you're here to do whatever needs doing. Scrub decks in freezing winds. Scrape ice off ropes until your fingers forget joy. Eat rancid biscuits. Repeat. Whales are just the main characters. You're more like a background extra who occasionally holds a harpoon. As you sail north toward waters around Greenland, Svalbard, or even the Davis Strait, reality sets in. The farther you go, the fewer birds you see, the colder the air gets, and the more the ocean looks like a spilled bag of ice cubes. You wonder why no one invented just staying home, but it's 1690, or 1835, or 1901, and humanity hasn't figured that out yet. Still, there is a strange pride in joining this centuries-long tradition. You're part of something bigger, a global industry chasing bowhead whales for their precious oil and baleen. Whale oil lights lamps, greases machines, and makes wealthy people feel superior. Baleen flexible strips from whale jaws becomes corsets and umbrella ribs because fashion must be supported by suffering. Bottom line, you risk your life so someone back home can have brighter lighting and perkier posture. You settle into the ship's routine, half comforted by the fact that everyone else looks equally terrified. At least you're not alone. Misery, as it turns out, is deeply social. As the coastline disappears behind you, the deck crunches beneath your boots, the wind gnaws on your ears, and you realize something profound. You have made a mistake. But there's no turning back now. The ice is calling, the whales are waiting, and your life, however short, has officially begun. Your new co-workers are a mix of farm boys, fishermen, ex-soldiers, and that one guy who looks like he was born holding a harpoon. There is no onboarding, no welcome slideshow, no icebreaker exercises unless you count literally breaking ice. Instead, you are tossed onto a cramped vessel with a bunch of men who look like they've either seen too much or seen nothing at all, and are deeply excited to start. You introduce yourself, shout your hometown, and instantly forget everyone else's name. Which is fine. Most people respond to "hey you" anyway. At least half the crew is here for the same reason you are, money with the side of not starving. The rest are here because their other life plans didn't pan out. Maybe they got kicked off a farm for fighting a cow. Maybe they tried piracy but got seasick. Maybe they just really like the smell of whale. Their motives are unclear. Their stares are uncomfortably clear. Let's talk about your bunk mates. You sleep shoulder to shoulder with men who have not bathed since time immemorial. The one above you snores with the force of a full-grown muskox. The one below you collects teeth for reasons you decide not to ask. Someone keeps singing sea ballads at 3 a.m., which is either charming or a crime. There's a guy who claims he can talk to whales. You hope he can, because someone here should know what they're doing. It is time to meet the officers. The captain stands at the top of the hierarchy, radiating stern energy and a cloak of animal hides. He's seen enough voyages to know that enthusiasm fades around the same time the cold sets into your spleen. Below him is the first mate, whose job is to shout at everyone until their self-esteem freezes solid. Then there's the boatswain, pronounced like someone swallowed half the alphabet, the deck's taskmaster. He's the reason you do chores, even when your fingers have gone into a light coma. The harpooners? They are cool. They walk around with enormous confidence and enormous arms. They are the only people allowed to look grimly heroic while the rest of you haul rope and try not to cry. If this were a modern workplace, they'd be the star sales team, your data entry. Let's talk about the cook. He's a man of mystery. He prepares meals that simultaneously taste like nothing and everything. His staple ingredients appear to be salt, regret, and reused whale fat. You ask him where he learned to cook. He shrugs. Kitchen. End of story. The carpenter is the ship's emotional support adult. He fixes broken planks, splintered tools, and occasionally broken spirits. He can mend anything except your terrible life decisions. The Surgeon S skills vary. In a best-case scenario, he knows how to tie a tourniquet. Worst case, he is a guy who once saw a doctor at a distance and thought, I can probably do that. Either way, his main tool is a saw. Then there is the greenhorns, people newer than you. You cheer internally when you spot one. This means at least one person is lower on the social ladder. The crew trains them by handing them dangerous tools and saying good luck. Survival is the exam. Daily life means working with this oddly assembled choir of sailors, each bringing their personal brand of chaos. You learn names slowly. There's Jacob the Loud, who laughs like a cannon. Willem the Quiet, who hasn't spoken since 1812. Big Peter is actually very small. Little Peter is enormous and has the handwriting of an angel. You spend weeks figuring out whether hands with the spoon means he loves spoons or once stabbed someone with one. Maybe both. Everyone has a job, but everyone also has an unofficial ship persona. There's the guy who tries to start philosophical conversations while gutting fish. There's a fellow who insists the aurora borealis is judging him personally. Someone has memorized every Bible verse but still curses like a drunk goat. He claims this is balance. Let's talk hygiene. The crew bathes seldom. You smell like salt, sweat, smoke, and whale. The man next to you smells like the inside of a walrus. You develop a personal ranking system of stench. The winner gets to sleep far away from you until you realize nowhere is far away on this ship. Still, camaraderie blooms in the frost. You share stories, half of which are lies. You learn drinking games that require no actual drinking, because nothing on board is fun. You help each other thaw frozen socks over the Triworks fire. You crack jokes about frostbite because humor is cheaper than medicine. There are fights sometimes. Someone accuses someone of cheating at cards. Someone touches someone else's fancy spoon. Someone suggests that maybe, just maybe, the blubber smells bad. Punches are thrown in slow motion because everyone's joints are frozen. And yet, despite all the chaos, the crew becomes a kind of family. A weird, noisy, occasionally violent family, but family nonetheless. When storms hit, you trust them more than anyone. When the ice presses in, you huddle together. When a whale surfaces, the deck becomes a symphony of coordinated panic. You look around at these men strangers only weeks ago and realize a truth. You're all in this together. In darkness, in storms, in hunger, in absurdity. And if you survive, it'll be because these weird roommates helped keep you alive. Sailing north, the sea grows quieter, colder. and covered with ice chunks that look suspiciously like your future tombstones. At first, you're still close enough to civilization to pretend everything is fine. The coastline trails behind you like an ex you swear you've moved on from until you glance back and think, maybe I made a mistake. The waves still move nicely, the gulls still complain loudly, and the ship still smells only mildly like concentrated seafood breath. But every day the water darkens, the sky greys, the temperature drops, and your enthusiasm dies a little. The first real sign you've crossed into the territory of bad decisions is the wind. It stops flirting and begins punching. Your layers of wool suddenly feel like decorative napkins. The breeze whistles through your coat, your bones, and possibly your soul. You ask a veteran sailor, will it get colder? He nods once, in a way that communicates 1,000 unspoken tragedies. Let us talk about the view. On a good day, the Arctic looks like a painting someone made while sad. There's a brilliant haze or a grey-blue ocean stretching forever, broken up only by floating chunks of ice. The silence is overwhelming. No merchants shouting, no dogs barking, no city noise. Just the faint creak of the ship and your heartbeat panicking like it's late for work. At some point, penguins cross your mind. Turns out they don't live here. Wrong pole. The crew mocks you gently. You take the L quietly. Icebergs begin to appear, first as tiny crashing fragments that bounce against the hull with sinister friendliness. Then larger masses, jagged marble sculptures rising out of the water like frozen fangs. Some glow blue from within, like they are storing ancient secrets or possibly haunted. You touch one not on purpose. The ship bumps and it's shockingly cold. A chill seems to run up your arm and settle behind your eyes, whispering, this will not end well. Transition time. Let's talk about the sound of this place. There is none. No waves crashing, no birds squawking, just stillness. You stand on deck, listening to your breath and the occasional crack of ice. It is the world's most terrifying ASMR experience. The Arctic is quiet the way an empty parking lot behind a bad motel is quiet eerily, judgmentally, like it knows something you don't. The sailors call this region the edge of the world, which feels dramatic until you are here, staring at a horizon that looks less like a boundary and more like a blank page where something terrible is about to be written. You imagine the map saying, here be monsters. Instead, it just says ice. But honestly, you think ice is the monster. Let us talk temperature. And by talk, I mean cry. Every day the air slices deeper. You wrap yourself in every garment you own, plus a borrowed scarf that smells faintly of seal. Your eyelashes freeze together. Your nose decides it's no longer part of your body. The idea of warmth becomes a memory so distant you're not sure it ever existed. Someone hands you whale oil to rub on your skin. You ask, does this work? They shrug. Sometimes. It doesn't inspire confidence. Modern comparison. It is like walking into a grocery store freezer section in a swimsuit and then living there forever. Let us talk about the ship. Each plank and rope protests. The sails snap violently as gusts slam into them. The wooden hull creaks, complaining loudly about the idiotic humans forcing it into the world's largest ice bath. The deck grows slippery with frost, and you walk with tiny penguin steps to avoid face-planting into a harpoon. Meals get colder. Soup turns to slush. Bread becomes a form of self-defense. You bite into a biscuit and chip a tooth. The surgeon recommends ignoring it. The more north you go, the stranger things get. The sun begins to struggle. Days shorten, then shorten more. Night creeps in like a roommate who forgot their key, slow, awkward, relentless. Eventually darkness wins. You wake to darkness. You work in darkness. You eat in darkness. You question every decision you've ever made in darkness. Some nights, The aurora borealis spills across the sky, green, blue, and purple rivers of light swirling above. It's breathtaking. You try to appreciate the beauty, but your toes are screaming. The lights dance silently, taunting you. Nature's big, cosmic screensaver. Then there's the wildlife. A seal bobs next to the ship, staring. Its eyes seem to say, "Turn back, idiot." A gull perches on the mast, unimpressed. Somewhere, a polar bear lurks. You haven't seen one yet, but you know they're around hulking hungry, absolutely uninterested in your personal goals. You grip the railing and realize something important. The Arctic is not a place. It's a warning. You're very small. The world is very big, and soon it's only going to get colder. Breakfast is not a vibe. You get salted meat, stale biscuits, and maybe a splash of whale oil in your tea if you're feeling fancy. It's early morning though, honestly. In the Arctic, morning is just a concept. The sky is a non-committal shade of grey. The deck is coated in frost, and you're pretty sure your eyebrows froze during the short walk from your bunk to the galley. There's no aroma of sizzling bacon, no coffee brewing, no gentle hum of a toaster. Just a big iron cauldron of something, steaming faintly and smelling like a boot that lost a fight with the ocean. Let us talk about the menu. First up, salted meat. The name tells you everything you need to know. It's meat. It is salty. It has the texture of a worry stone and the personality of despair. This stuff has been packed in brine for months, maybe years, until it transforms into a substance somewhere between jerky and drywall. You gnaw on it with a hopeful expression, wishing it were even remotely tender. Your jaw gives up long before the meat does. Then there's the ship's biscuit, also known as hardtack. If you're unfamiliar, imagine a cracker that has gone through Navy SEAL training and sworn never to show weakness again. Hardtack is so hard you could roll a boot with it. Sailors often have to dunk it in water, broth, or tears for 20 minutes just to break it. It's occasionally full of Weevil's tiny protein sprinkles that the crew pretends are intentional, high in fiber, protein, and emotional damage. Tea is a luxury here, meaning it exists but tastes like sadness. If the cook is feeling creative, he'll lace it with whale oil for richness. It's similar to adding butter to coffee, except instead of being creamy, it coats your mouth with the thin film that makes you feel like you've been French kissing a lantern. Modern comparison. Breakfast on a whaling ship is like camping. If the camp was inside a freezer, your food was from a hardware store, and you woke up every day to someone shouting, "Eat faster. The deck needs scraping." Eventually, you learn the system. You want to eat early, because latecomers get whatever scraps are left, or worse, serve as clean-up crew. And clean-up involves scraping congealed whale fat off the galley floor, trying not to slip and slide into the pot. If you fall in, the cook probably just lifts you out, shrugs, and says, "Adds flavour." Speaking of the cook, he goes by many names. Cookie, Old Bones, or Please Stop. His job is to take rations that would make prison food look like fine dining and transform them into something technically edible. He's always sweaty, always scowling, always stirring something that makes suspicious noises. He has two spices, salt and heat. Everything tastes like salt. If it doesn't it tastes like salt and smoke. You ask him if he ever gets bored cooking the same thing. He hands you a ladle and says, "You try." You return it immediately. Let us talk seating. The dining room is basically a plank nailed to two barrels. Everyone lines up, shivering, bowls in hand. You wedge yourself between guys whose coats could stand up on their own. Conversation is minimal. Words take energy. Everyone is saving calories for harpoon practice and existential panic. While you eat, the ship groans around you. Ice scrapes along the hull, ropes creak, and somewhere above, a sailor coughs the cough of a man already writing his will. You take another bite of hardtack. A tooth wiggles. You pretend it didn't. Just when you think it can get worse, it does. Breakfast occasionally features peas porridge, a pasty blend of peas, salt, and whatever regret the cook found lying around. It is greenish. It jiggles. You're convinced it is alive. Some sailors claim it tastes better the second day. Others claim it tastes better if you just stare at it and don't eat. You pick your battles. Let's transition. It's time to talk about luxury. Sometimes you get molasses. Just a spoonful, so dark and thick it looks like spilled night. This is the high point of your week. You savor it slowly, like melted candy. The happiness lasts 3 minutes, maybe 4, before frostbite memories return. Breakfast ends when the cook slams his ladle on the table and announces, "Work." You scrape your bowl clean, mostly because you don't want to carry the sludge back to the deck. You toss your biscuit crumbs to the gulls, who stare at them, confused, as if to say, "No thanks, we have standards." You shuffle back to your duties with a stomach half full and a heart 3/4 empty. The salty meat buzzes like a weighted blanket on your intestines. The hardtack sits like a brick. The tea warms your hands, but not your soul. You glance around at your crewmates, equal parts exhausted and constipated, and realize breakfast on an Arctic whaling ship isn't designed to be fun, tasty, or memorable. It's designed to keep you just alive enough to do horrifying labor in a frozen nightmare. Bowhead whales glide through the Arctic like enormous, oily submarines. When someone spots one, the ship erupts, boats are lowered, men row like their paychecks depend on it. They do, and you try not to die. It always begins with a shout. Someone up in the mast, probably a skinny guy with excellent balance and no regard for personal safety, suddenly yells, "There she blows!" He points toward a distant column of vapor rising from the sea like a ghostly exhale. That tiny puff means one thing. Your day just got a lot more dangerous. Bowheads aren't small. They can weigh over 80 tons, stretch longer than your house, and move through frigid water like they own the place. They basically do. Their massive heads hold baleen, those long comb-like plates that filter food, and later become fancy 18th century corsets. In other words, the reason people are chasing this giant is that someone in Europe wants better fashion posture. Humanity is complicated. The moment a bowhead is spotted, order vanishes. Men scramble. Harpoons are grabbed. The captain barks instructions. The mate barks louder. You try to stay out of the way while also looking useful. The whale boats are lowered into the water. Small open boats crewed by 5 or 6 men who are, coincidentally, very interested in not dying. You're one of them. The water is icy. Your rear end goes numb within seconds. Everyone rows. The freezing spray from each stroke hits your face like Mother Nature's slap. The harpooner crouches up front, calm as a man preparing a grocery list. He's the star athlete of this sport. The rest of you are background dancers hoping not to drown. Let ease pause, rowing toward an 80-ton creature that has no idea you exist and will be deeply annoyed when it finds out is objectively insane. You're approaching a living bus, but this is whaling. Logic doesn't live here. As you get close, you spot the whale's dark, curving back, breaking the surface. It's enormous, slow, and eerily peaceful. It exhales again, the spray shooting upward like it mocking your tiny lungs. The water around it steams slightly from the warmth. For a moment you think, this is majestic, a miracle of nature. Then the harpooner stands, raises his weapon, and absolutely ruins the vibe. He throws the harpoon with all the grace of a homicidal ballerina. It lands with a meaty thud. The whale reacts immediately, shuddering, diving, thrashing. This is when the fun starts. And by fun I mean everyone questions their life choices. The rope attached to the harpoon, called the line, begins racing out of its tub faster than gossip in a small town. The friction smokes. If the rope tangles round your leg, you become a human fishing lure. Sailors keep knives ready for this exact reason. The first rule of whaling: when in doubt, cut the rope before it cuts you in half. The whale's first move is almost always to dive deep. Your boat suddenly jerks forward as though hitched to a runaway horse. You grip the gunwale while trying not to. Scream. The harpooner looks thrilled. He lives for this. You live to not drown. Eventually the whale resurfaces and the real battle begins. Sometimes it swims so fast it tows the boat miles. A Nantucket sleigh ride, they call it, because apparently humour still exists here. The water hisses, the boat rattles, and your internal organs attempt to jailbreak. Let us transition. The second phase, killing the whale. Once close again, the crew uses Lance's big pointy spears to stab deep into the whale's body. This part is messy. Bowheads have thick blubber, so it takes several hits. The goal is to puncture vital organs and cause internal bleeding. You do this while standing in a small boat rocking violently in Arctic waters. OSHA definitely is not here. The whale fights back. It thrashes, tail slamming waves into mountains. One wrong move and the boat flips, sending you into water cold enough to stop your heart before you can swear. Many men die this way. Yet you press on because whale oil keeps lamps burning and wallets mildly padded. After what feels like an eternity, realistically minutes to hours, the whale starts to weaken. Blood spreads through the water like spilled ink. Eventually, the bowhead dies, floating belly up, an enormous silent monument to how far humans will go for heating fuel and corsets. You tow the carcass back to the main ship. It is enormous, your tiny boat dwarfed beside it. Everyone on deck cheers because this means income, not comfort, not warmth. Income. Then begins the truly disturbing part, cutting the whale. But that's another nightmare for another section. You climb back aboard, numb and exhausted, smelling like fear, salt, and victory. You just participated in one of the most dangerous tasks on Earth. You survived. For now. Once you actually catch the whale, congratulations. It's time to cut it apart on a freezing deck and boil the blubber into oil. The celebration of a successful hunt lasts about 3 seconds. After that, everyone is ordered back to work because a dead whale waits for no one. Its colossal body floats beside the ship like a slippery island made of meat and emotional trauma. The ocean is calm, the air is cold, and everything smells intensely whale. The first step is flensing, aka peeling the whale like the world's largest, saddest fruit. Men scramble onto the carcass, wearing boots that have never seen a cobbler and likely never will. Standing on a whale is like standing on a half-frozen waterbed covered in soap. You attempt to find balance while wielding knives the size of small swords. The goal is simple. Remove the blubber in long strips called blanket pieces. Simple. Ha! A long hook called a blubber hook is lodged into the fatty skin, then hauled upward from the ship's rigging. Someone cranks a winch, and the blubber strip peels off with a long squelching sound you will hear in your nightmares forever. The whale carcass slowly spins as strips are removed. Like a grotesque rotisserie chicken, the deck becomes a slip and slide made of whale fat. OSHA would have spontaneously caught fire centuries ago. Let us make a modern comparison. Imagine doing an intricate craft project while standing on a greased trampoline in a walk-in freezer, while someone splashes you with cold blood. Now imagine doing that for hours. Still interested, the strips are then hacked into chunks and carried across the deck like lumpy, oily children. You and your fellow crew members toss them into giant iron pots called tripods. Part of the Tryworks furnace, the only real heat on board, Tryworks are basically a fiery stove built into a wooden ship floating next to tons of oil. It's like storing fireworks in a sauna. No notes. Perfectly safe. The furnace burns constantly, fueled by scraps of dried blubber called cracklings or simply scraps of former whales. They're surprisingly effective fuel. The smell of burning blubber is legendary. A pungent fusion of hot grease, fish funk, and regret. It clings to your clothes, your beard, your soul. If you return home smelling like this, people will assume you angered a sea god. Now comes the stirring. You stand beside the bubbling cauldron, poking at chunks of blubber with a long paddle, while the Arctic wind tries to pry your ears off. Whale oil splatters everywhere. A single drop on your skin burns deep nature-esque reminder that you should have learned a trade like shoemaking. The fire roars, melting ice on nearby rigging and fogging the air with greasy steam. The entire deck glows hellishly, like you were running a demonic soup kitchen. The oil is ladled into barrels, each one precious enough to make this entire ordeal worth it. You tighten the lid, label it, and roll it aside. Repeat, again and again. While everyone else sleeps, the Tryworks keeps going. Day, night, doesn't matter. The whale is processed until it is gone. The crew rotates shifts, taking turns to freeze outdoors and sweat like livestock near the flames. Occasionally the ship hits a wave just wrong. The cauldron tilts, and boiling oil sloshes out. This is not ideal. People leap aside instinctively because molten whale fat is a terrible facial treatment. Some ships have caught fire, their crews forced to choose between freezing to death on ice floes or boiling alive. Great options. Let SS transition. We haven't talked enough about the smell. It is everywhere. In your hair, in your pores, in the wood of the ship. It is like deep-fried ocean sadness. You wake up smelling like whale. You eat smelling whale. You dream of whale. Even your nightmares smell like whale. When you return to port, people can detect you from several blocks away. Dogs follow you. Cats follow the dogs. Strangers cough. You shrug and say, "It's honest work," while secretly wondering if you'll ever be clean again. Between shifts, you scrape congealed fat off the planks, sometimes with tools, sometimes with your boot. The deck is never not slippery. Falling is common. Falling into the tripod is less common, but the fear lingers. By the time the whale is fully rendered, you're exhausted, singed and lightly marinated. The carcass, mostly stripped, drifts away or is pushed off with poles. Gulls descend, screaming like they were rated R. You try to watch respectfully, but you're mostly just trying to thaw your fingers, and after days of grueling work, you step back, stretch your aching spine and take stock. Your clothes are soaked with whale, your hands are blistered, your lungs feel smoked. But there are barrels stacked on deck, proof of your labour, your suffering, your questionable career choice. Enough oil to light homes, lubricate machinery, line pockets, and fund someone else's corset collection. You've helped turn a majestic creature into lamp fuel. Congratulations, you're an Arctic whaler. The Tryworks, the whaling stove, burns day and night, melting blubber into precious oil. It's the ship's only real heat source, and that should be comforting, except it isn't tea. Because this heat source lives on a wooden deck, surrounded by barrels of highly flammable whale grease, on a ship bobbing through ice-choked seas, it's like heating your house by putting a bonfire on the dining table, then inviting your oily friends over to nap beside it. Welcome to cozy horror. The Tryworks sits mid-deck. 2 brick-lined iron pots, giant cauldrons anchored in a brick hearth that looks suspiciously like something a witch would use to prepare potions. Except instead of herbs and frog legs, you're smelting whale fat. and instead of nature magic, you are doing industrial capitalism. The structure is heavy enough that the deck beneath it has been reinforced. Even so, every time a wave hits, the entire setup creaks like it's trying to decide whether to stay upright or tip sideways and convert everyone into flash-fried snacks. The crew walks around it carefully like it's a sleeping tiger, a flaming tiger, fueled by grease. Speaking of fuel, the furnace below the pots burns bits of dried whale fat scraps. They ignite shockingly well. This is great if you enjoy reliable fire, less great if you step too close while thinking about soup. The flames roar like they were auditioning to replace the aurora borealis. Let S transition to the Y. The blubber chunks get thrown into the pots and boiled into liquid gold, whale oil. Oil to light lamps, grease machinery, make soap, and generally keep 18th and 19th century society running. Somewhere far away, a lady in London lights her reading lamp, blissfully unaware that you nearly became deep-fried in the Arctic so she could enjoy poetry before bed. You stir the boiling fat with long paddles, the oil bubbles and spits. One rogue pop can spray molten grease toward your face. Your eyelashes tense, your soul tenses. You lean away, muttering a prayer to whichever saint oversees not dying during stupid activities. Modern comparison. Imagine standing next to a deep fryer the size of a hot tub, while someone shakes the floor and flings ice at your head. Now imagine you're cold, exhausted and covered in grease. Enjoy. The only good thing about the try-works is that it produces heat. The only good thing. On whaling ships, this makes it the social hotspot. Literally. Sailors huddle around, hands outstretched, trying to thaw their knuckles. You bask in the warmth, brief, delicious, confusingly comforting while ignoring the nagging voice reminding you that you're standing next to a flaming vat of blubber on a wooden deck surrounded by oil. Sometimes someone's mittens catch fire. This is casually accepted. Someone throws a ladle of seawater, then everyone laughs nervously. It's funny in that nothing bad happened yet way. Not haha funny. Survival funny. Let's talk nighttime. The try-works runs after dark. The Arctic night can stretch for months, so after dark is basically always. The fiery glow throws orange light across the surrounding ice floes, giving the world the appearance of a cozy hell. Shadows dance like demons over barrels and rigging. Smoke curls into the air, mixing with mist until you're not sure if you're breathing reality or soup. The smoke sticks to everything. Clothes, hair, skin, dreams. After an hour, you smell like someone slow cooked you in marine bacon fat. If you ever go home, your family will know you're approaching before you step off the docks. Dogs will rejoice. Humans will gag. Safety? A storm can send a wave slamming across the deck, dousing the fire or worse, splashing burning oil everywhere. Many ships burn this way. Wooden ships, at sea, in the Arctic, with limited escape options besides hope the ice looks soft to land on. There are stories of flames licking up the mast, sailors slipping on fat, men juggling barrels of scalding oil while screaming instructions like, "Left, know your other left." Miraculously, many lived. Some didn't. But the work continued because the whale was already dead. The oil had to be made and nobody had invented lamps that ran on not trauma. Here's the psychological twist. Over time, you grow fond of the try-works. Not because you like boiling fat, but because you like feeling your toes. The heat keeps frostbite away. It gives you somewhere to stand when the wind is so cold it feels personal. You start to think, sure, it could kill me, but so could everything else here. At least this is warm. During breaks, you lean on the rail and stare across black water at drifting icebergs. The fire flickers behind you. The ship creaks beneath you. The cold nips at your ears. Somewhere in the distance, a whale surfaces and sighs a slow, haunting breath that sounds suspiciously like mockery. You return to the try-works to stir another pot, because if you don tea, the oil doesn't get made, and if the oil doesn't get made, the ship doesn't get paid, and if the ship doesn't get paid, you definitely don't get paid. So you roast, you freeze, you reek, you risk fire. Your world becomes equal parts ice and flame. In the end, you walk away with a new understanding of heat. It is comforting, it is dangerous, it is necessary, much like this job. Your cabin is smaller than a studio apartment by a factor of 10. You sleep stacked like Tetris blocks, wrapped in layers of damp wool. In fact, calling it a cabin is generous. It's more like a glorified drawer, except drawers are usually clean, dry, and smell less like uncomfortable men. Here is always damp. Not humid summer day damp, no. The kind of damp where your clothes develop their own personality and your blanket squelches when you roll over. The air tastes like brine and feet. Pretty sure mildew has become a new member of the crew. Your bunk is one of many, arranged in rows so tight that getting in or out requires a combination of yoga and emotional surrender. Sailors sleep in shifts, so when you climb in, it is still warm from the previous occupant, an experience that can only be described as moistly intimate. Blankets are thin, often shared, and rarely clean. Laundry isn't really a thing here. When something gets dirty, you shrug and layer another garment over it until the shame disappears. Let us transition to privacy, or rather, the complete absence of it. Your personal space is whatever room you can create by pulling your knees to your chest. If you want alone time, congratulations. Your only option is to close your eyes and pretend. Every sniffle, cough, snore, and philosophical breakdown happens within arm's reach. You learn to sleep through anything, shouting, singing, people eating hardtack with the crunch volume of gravel. Even the ship's constant swaying becomes just another weird bedtime story. The ceiling is low. You can sit upright in your bunk without hitting your head, so you mostly lie there staring at rough wooden beams stained by decades of oil, sweat, and questionable life decisions. In the dark, they loom above you like the underside of a very angry tree. If the ship creaks, and it always does, you wonder if the whole ceiling will collapse and turn you into a human pancake. Modern comparison? It is like renting a tiny NYC apartment with 6 strangers, but the entire apartment is the hallway closet, and you are required to share the mattress with the previous tenantess' cologne fumes and emotional baggage. Let us talk ventilation. Airflow is theoretical. The portholes are sealed shut because outside is the Arctic, and nobody wants to freeze much, much faster. So the air inside gets recycled through lungs, sweat glands, and despair. The result is a scent palette best described as fermented leather dipped in whale broth. If someone smuggles an orange aboard, its citrus fragrance becomes a spiritual event. Your neighbours are half the experience. On one side is a man who tells ghost stories at bedtime. Sweet. Except his ghosts are all former crewmates who froze, drowned, or were swatted into the afterlife by angry bowheads. On the other side, someone is snoring so loudly that the ship's rats have moved decks to get some rest. Every so often, the guy above you turns over and sprinkles sawdust-sized crumbs of hardtack into your face. You squint, brush them off, and consider revenge. Let's transition. Time for storage. There is none. You get a small chest barely big enough for a spare shirt, a knife, and the knife-s feelings. Most belongings hang from nails in the wall. If the ship hits a big wave, everything falls and clatters dramatically. You learn to sleep through that too. Some men carve tiny shelves or hang little charms near their bunks, tokens from home, scraps of fabric from someone they loved. weird wooden dolls that stare at you while you sleep. They add personality to the dark. They also give you something to look at besides the ceiling boards and the growing sense you may never feel dry again. Now, let's discuss temperature. Cold. Always cold. If you're lucky, your bunk is near the try-works, where you can occasionally feel a faint glow of heat. More often, you're positioned somewhere drafty. An icy wind sneaks through every crack, kissing your toes and whispering, "You chose this." Your breath fogs the air. Frost forms on your beard. On some voyages, the water in the wash basin freezes solid indoors. In winter darkness, waking up is guesswork. There's no sun, just a dim lamp and the sound of someone muttering about their frostbitten fingers. You crawl out, wrap yourself in stiff wool that crunches when you move, and waddle to your duties like a disgruntled sheep. And yet, somehow, you adjust. You find rituals, shaking out your blanket, hoping the mildew goes away, sharing gossip because talking distracts you from freezing, laughing when someone has had freezes to the wall overnight. Late at night, when the ship is quiet and even the snorers have given up, you lie still and listen. The ice groans outside. The wood creaks around you. The ship shivers under the pressure of cold sea. You're reminded that this tiny wooden box is the only thing between you and an ocean that absolutely does not care. Your bunk may be cramped, smelly and damp, but it is also your sanctuary, your tiny cave, your only warmish place to dream of home. And if you can sleep here, you can sleep anywhere. Once the Arctic winter sets in, the sun simply refuses to show up. Days, weeks, months pass in darkness. At first, it is kind of magical. The sky deepens into velvety blackness, dotted with stars so crisp you could slice bread with them. The night feels quiet, peaceful. You look up and think, wow, I'm a tiny being in a giant universe. Give it a week, and you are thinking, please, I would like to be a tiny being anywhere else. Let SS set the scene. You wake up sometime, could be morning, could be the middle of the night. Time has lost all meaning. Clocks might as well be frisbees for all the good they do. The ship's bell rings to mark the watch schedule, but it feels arbitrary, like someone is deciding hours by rolling dice. You open your eyes and it's pitch black. You close your eyes and it's pitch black. Were you asleep 5 hours or 5 minutes? Unknown. You squint at the darkness and whisper, again? Everyone becomes permanently tired, permanently confused, and just a little bit feral. Let's transition. Light sources. There are a few. Whale oil lamps glow weakly, flickering like they're trying to give up but lack follow-through. The try-works on deck glows hot and dangerous, offering orange light that makes everyone look like they are starring in a budget horror film. The aurora occasionally sweeps across the sky in shimmering curtains of green and purple, which would be majestic if it didn't remind you how deeply, hopelessly cold you are. The darkness plays tricks on your mind. You start to imagine shapes moving in the corners, except there are no corners, just crewmates shifting in their bunks. You close your eyes and see darkness. You open them and see the same. After a while, you are not sure if you actually have eyes or if you're just guessing. Time for a modern comparison. Imagine living inside a blackout curtain while someone slowly sprays your face with ice water. Occasionally, a glowing screensaver of swirling neon lights dances overhead. Also, you're living with 30 men who smell like a soup that someone left outside. Let's talk daily routine in eternal night. Breakfast happens in darkness. Work, darkness. Scraping frozen blubber, mending rigging, rowing, cleaning everything in darkness. If you drop a tool, it vanishes into the void. You kneel, pat the deck, whispering, please come back. Sometimes it returns, sometimes the ocean steals it forever. Your body rebels, you crave sunlight, you daydream about it, warm, bright, vitamin D-filled sunshine that doesn't even require boiling whale entrails to exist. Instead, you get 24-hour night, and a wind so cold it feels like the universe wants you to exfoliate permanently. Somewhere around week 3, everyone's mood shifts. The singing dies first. The joking slows. Small talk becomes, "Are we alive?" Someone starts journaling in the dark even though he can't see the page. You assume he's just scribbling lines and hoping future historians will pretend it as meaningful. Let ES transition. Mentally, things wobble. The officers try to keep spirits up. Maybe there's a card game. Maybe someone tells a story. But in the background, morale slips like oil on the deck. Men pace the narrow corridors. Some sleep 18 hours a day because unconsciousness is the only escape from reality. Others stay awake too long, staring out into darkness, convinced they'll see something land, a ship, a sign from God, just anything besides black water and distant ice. Your dreams become weird. You dream of home-warm beds, normal meals, the sun rising like a reliable friend. Then you wake up and it's still dark, always dark. The disappointment becomes physical. Let's talk aurora. It's one of the few joys. Sometimes the sky erupts into swirling light, shimmering like celestial curtains. The colours ripple silently. Green, blue, purple beauty so big and strange it feels alien. The crew stands on deck, breath-frosting, staring up in awe. One guy insists it's ghosts. Another says it's angels. The cook says it's a sign we need more blubber in the pot. No one believes him, but they do eat his soup anyway. The darkness also makes danger harder to spot. Icebergs lurk silently, invisible until they crunch against the hull. The ship groans like it's complaining about your life choices. Men take turns on watch, peering into blackness for movement, shapes, threats. Their eyes strain. Their minds strain more. With no sunrise or sunset, your internal clock goes on strike. Days blur. Weeks blend. Someone declares it Tuesday. Someone else swears it is Sunday. You compromise and call it ship day. The captain tells you to report for duty at dawn. You laugh because dawn is a myth now, like unicorns, or shoes without whale grease on them. Morning prayers, meals, chores, sleep cycles, they happen when someone says so, not when nature agrees. The Arctic denies you structure. The Arctic denies you sanity. You learn to operate like a creature of the night, except you don't get cool vampire powers, just cracked lips and questionable judgment. By the time the first sliver of sunlight finally crawls over the horizon, after weeks or months of darkness, you stop everything and stare. The crew goes silent. The sky is faintly gold, and people cry quietly because they forgot how colours other than dark looked. It lasts maybe 20 minutes, but it's enough to remember you are human. Until then, it's midnight forever. Fresh fruit is a myth. Vegetables are a rumour. Eventually your gums get puffy, your teeth wobble, and your joints protest like a French labour union. Welcome to scurvy, an ancient condition caused by not consuming enough vitamin C, also known as the thing preventing your body from quietly falling apart. Today, you can get vitamin C from orange juice, gummy bears, or that multivitamin you keep forgetting to take. But on an Arctic whaling ship from the 17th through early 20th century, no oranges, no vegetables, just salted meat, stale biscuits, and regret. At first, everything seems fine. You notice that the food is beige and flavourless, but you assume the test's just the local aesthetic. After a few weeks at sea, you start to crave fruit so badly you find yourself fantasizing about lemons, and you don't even like lemons. You would lick a lime like a lollipop if given the chance. Weeks blur together, months pass. You ignore the subtle hints your body offers. Fatigue, irritability, The sense that your soul is slightly ajar, just normal Arctic vibes, right? Then your legs start to ache. You chalk it up to the cold. Your gums get sore. You assume your toothbrush is broken, which is hilarious because you do not own a toothbrush. Let S transition. The symptoms escalate. Your gums swell. They turn purple. They bleed at the slightest provocation, like if someone mentions the word apple too loudly. Your teeth loosen in their sockets and begin to wiggle. They feel like tiny tourists preparing to leave. Some actually do. Your joints hurt. Your skin bruises easily. Old wounds reappear in a rude encore. Even scars soften and reopen like, hey, remember me? If you wrote these symptoms in a medical diary today, your doctor would sprint to your house with an orange. On this ship, the surgeon glances at your gums, shrugs and says, try not to die. Let S's make a modern comparison. It's like your body is a Lego set that suddenly realizes half its pieces are missing, so it starts dissolving itself out of pure annoyance. Meals aren't a helping. You eat salted beef so old it could legally vote. You gnaw hardtack so stale it could double as a building material. Everything you consume is dead on a cellular level. You might get fresh meat when someone harpoons a seal or polar bear, but unless the crew harvest the liver or fresh organs, you're not getting vitamin C. And here is the kicker. People knew citrus helped scurvy as early as the 18th century, but not every whaling voyage carried sufficient supplies, especially once the fruit rotted, froze, or was hoarded by someone ranking above you, coughed the captain. So the illness spreads. You watch men go from hard-working to hobbling in a matter of weeks. Gums balloon, teeth fall out mid-sentence, joints swell until even climbing a ladder feels like scaling Everest. The cook tries to help by boiling bones into soup, claiming it has nutrients. Does it help? No. It tastes like warm sadness. Let S transition. Daily life becomes a struggle. You wake up sore. You shuffle to your duties, clutching rigging with hands that feel ancient. Your knees mutter threats. Your legs feel heavy. The cold sinks deeper because your weakened body struggles to keep itself warm. Someone jokes that you walk like a penguin. You don't laugh. You can tee. Your jaw hurts. Some men grow lethargic, too weak to work the lines, row, or carve blubber. Everyone's already exhausted, but scurvy exhaustion feels different, like someone logged you out of your own body. You are spiritually buffering. Whalers try amateur cures. Someone swears seawater helps. It doesn't. Someone else says that chewing seal skin does the trick. It doesn't. The carpenter believes exercise cures everything. It doesn't, especially not when you can barely stand. The only true cure is vitamin C. So, unless an Inuit trader gifts your crew berries or fresh meat, or unless you miraculously packed preserved lemon juice, you just wait, and hope your body doesn't fully revolt. Some captains stockpile lemon or lime juice, but it's often poorly stored, fermented, or rationed so strictly that only officers get it. On unlucky voyages, no one gets any, and scurvy becomes a grim companion. Men die quietly, teeth scattered like confetti at the world's worst party. And yet, sometimes, mercifully, relief comes. You reach a trading point. You get seal liver. You chew fresh meat, realizing it tastes like salvation. Within days, your body responds. The swelling eases, the bruises fade, your gums relax. It is slow, but unmistakably real, the miracle of nutrition. By then, you've learned an important lesson. Fresh fruit is not optional. Vegetables are not decoration. Your body's not impressed by salted beef and prayer alone. But until you return to port, until someone hands you a lemon like a radiant glowing orb, scurvy is always lurking. Your joints crack, your gums ache, Your teeth wobble like loose buttons. It is this citrus-free experience. 0 out of 10. Would not recommend. Winter winds slice through wool and hope alike. Toes go numb, then black. Someone loses an ear, and everyone tries not to make eye contact. You thought cold was just cold. A little shiver, a sniffle. Maybe forgetting your gloves and going, "Ooh, brisk." But Arctic cold is a different species. It's not winter. It's an assassin with a personal vendetta. A sky-sized ice cube actively plotting against your limbs. Out here, wind isn't wind, it's a knife wearing a chill factor. The moment you step on deck, it hits you. Your eyelashes freeze. Your facial hair transforms into a rigid sculpture. Your breath crystallizes into tiny snowflakes that probably mock you on a molecular level. The cold is so intense, it doesn't feel cold anymore. It feels like an absence of warmth your brain wasn't built to comprehend. Your wool layers, they help hypothetically. In reality, they're damp and heavy, and they start to freeze the same way your dreams do. You wrap yourself like a human laundry pile. Shirt, second shirt, sweater, coat, whatever fabric you can find, including on desperate days, ropes. You look like a badly packed suitcase. But the cold still finds ways in, like it's reading your emotional baggage for entry points. Let us transition. Frostbite arrives quietly. It starts with numb fingertips. You think, that's weird. Then your toes go silent too. They are no longer friends. They are strangers attached to your feet out of habit. You try to wiggle them. Nothing. You stomp on the deck to get feeling back. Also nothing. You begin to question whether you still have legs or if the cold simply erased them. Eventually the skin turns pale, waxy, even greyish. If things get really bad, it goes black like someone left your foot in an oven but forgot to turn it on. Your shipmates inspect your extremities with mild scientific interest, then shrug. Everyone has frostbite stories. Losing a toe is practically casual. Losing a finger is mildly inconvenient. Losing an ear becomes local gossip. Someone inevitably offers advice. Just rub snow on it. Absolutely do not rub snow on it. But that is 21st century knowledge. In 1825, rubbing snow on frostbite is considered cutting-edge medicine. They'll tell you it stimulates circulation. It doesn't. It just adds extra cold to your cold. Congrats. Now it hurts worse. Sometimes, the ship's surgeon gets involved. The surgeon here means man with a saw. He'll poke your toes, nod gravely, and declare that they are no longer participating in society. Cue the amputation. The crew crowds around. There's no anesthesia except maybe rum. Mostly there is screaming. Afterward, everyone pats you on the back and says, "At least you've got 9 more. Let's make a modern comparison. Imagine you take your phone outside on a winter day and the battery dies instantly. Now imagine that happens to your actual fingers. That's the vibe. Frostbite doesn't just happen on deck. It sneaks into the sleeping quarters. You wake up and discover that your blanket froze to the wall. Or worse, your face froze to your blanket. You peel it off like a sticker skin optional. You wonder why no one invented central heating sooner. You curse the timeline. Sometimes, during night watch, you're posted on deck to stare into the void for hours. You wrap your hands around a rope and pray they still work later. The wind howls. Ice grinds against the hull. Your earlobes pour. Fragile earlobes stiffen. You cover them with whatever you can. A hat, a scarf, a spare sock. You look ridiculous. You don't care. The cold affects morale. Men grow quiet, their faces pinched, their movements stiff. Some become superstitious. Others whisper prayers. One guy claims frostbite is punishment for not eating enough hardtack. Another says it's caused by thinking bad thoughts. You're pretty sure the cause is being here, but you keep that to yourself. Let's transition again. You get creative. Sailors wrap rags around their toes. They line coats with scraps of sailcloth. Someone tries stuffing hay into their boots. Someone else tries seal fur. Someone tries drinking hot oil. No one says he's smart. Anyone fortunate enough to trade with Inuit communities learns new tricks. Proper layering, better boots, using fresh meat for warmth and nutrition. Imagine that, asking the experts. Even with every trick, frostbite wins battles. You learn to recognize the men who have it bad, faces tight with pain, hands constantly hidden, footsteps awkward. They work slower, they mutter more. They stare at their blackened toes with a mix of sadness and curiosity, like they were reading a breakup letter. Sometimes limbs survive, the colour returns, feeling creeps back in, and you praise whatever cosmic force spared your flesh. Other times, the cold claims what it wants. But here's the strange part. After a while, you adapt. You stop panicking when your fingers go numb. You learn to move constantly, stomp, flex, curse the wind like it owes you money. You accept that pain is just part of your daily outfit like boots, wool, and crippling anxiety. You learn to respect the cold, fear it, survive it. Fingers? Optional. Sudden Arctic storms smash ice against the hull like nature's angry bartender. Waves crash over the deck. Everything is slick and terrifying. You might think a storm is just wind and rain. Cute. That's what storms are like where people live. Up here, a storm is what you'd get if a freezer and a washing machine had a violent, angry baby. The sky goes from grey and depressing to, I hope you've made peace with your God in about 4 minutes. It usually starts quietly. The air stiffens, the sea darkens, the wind whispers, hey, wanna see something bad? Clouds appear where there were none, because the Arctic likes surprises. Someone on watch frowns at the horizon. The captain pretends everything's fine. Then the first gust slams into the sails like an uninvited dinner guest, and suddenly the entire ship is doing yoga poses you did not authorize. Let us transition. The ice arrives. During storm season, drifting pack ice becomes your worst frenemy. It came to hang out, chill on the waves, and then boom, starts ramming the hull like it's trying to collect a debt. The sound is a hollow, skin-crawling thud that reminds you the only thing between you and the freezing ocean is wooden prayers. Chunks the size of coffee tables scrape past. Chunks the size of cottages drift in closer. Sometimes they crash into each other, sending shards flying. You duck, because getting hit in the face with airborne ice is a rough way to start a shift. The ship pitches and rolls. Every step is a trust exercise, except trust has been replaced with hope your balance works today. The deck might tilt 30 degrees, sometimes more. You cling to a rope, feeling your ribs complain. Water sloshes everywhere, half freezing instantly. The deck becomes a skating rink sprinkled with whale grease. If you slip, the sea is right there, waiting like a hungry cat. Modern comparison. Imagine ice skating on a moving pickup truck while someone sprays you with a hose and throws buckets of slush at your head. Now imagine the pickup is also trying to sink. Let us talk visibility. There is none. Everything turns white snow, fog, ice, ocean smothered under whipped foam. The world is reduced to what's right in front of your face, which is probably a rope, or the back of someone who's having just as bad a time. You can tell where the sky ends and the sea begins is like living inside a malfunctioning refrigerator. Communication devolves into shouting. The wind steals half your words and flings them into Canada. The captain yells. The mate yells louder. You can hear either. Everyone just hopes they were doing the right thing and not, say, releasing important ropes that will destroy the entire ship. Let S transition. Freezing spray. Every wave that hits coats the ship in a fresh layer of ice. Within hours, rigging, rails, and sails are stiff with frost. The ship gets heavier, terrifyingly heavier. So men climb to hack the ice off with axes and mallets. Yes, during a violent storm, on a slippery deck, in the Arctic, with numb fingers. You swing at the ice, knocking chunks off while trying not to fall. One slip, and you're overboard into water cold enough to stop your heart in under a minute. By the time anyone notices you're gone, you've already become one with Poseidon. Even below decks, you're not safe. The storm howls like an animal. The hull shakes. Water seeps in through seams, dripping onto faces trying to sleep. You lie there, counting creaks like they were warning signs. Every groan sounds like the ship contemplating whether to stay intact. Sometimes, storms trap you in the pack ice. The wind shifts ice flows around the ship, squeezing it from both sides like a walnut in a vice. The timbers groan. Men go silent. Everyone waits. Sometimes the ice relents. Sometimes it crushes the hull, splintering wood, sending sailors scrambling to get onto the ice because somehow that is safer. The 1871 whaling disaster in Alaska. 33 whaling ships trapped, all abandoned. Hundreds of men fleeing across the ice, hoping anyone had a plan. That's the reality of storm season. It does not negotiate. Let us transition again. Sheer chaos. Masts sway like drunken trees. Loose barrels skid across the deck like violent toddlers. You dodge flying tools, flying men, flying emotions. Someone slips, crashes into you, and together you pinwheel against the rail. The sea roars on the other side, inches away. You shove back, grateful and shaken. Below, men are praying. Not fancy prayers, just, "Oh no, oh no, oh no, please stop, oh no." Others try to keep busy bailing water, securing ropes, comforting the ship's terrified cat. Every ship has one. Morale matters. Eventually, maybe hours, maybe days, the storm starts to weaken. Waves shrink to bruised rolling. Wind softens. Ice drifts away. You are still alive. Everyone looks around with the same expression. I cannot believe we were still here. Then, without ceremony, work resumes. You fix what broke. You pump out water. You scrape ice from your coat and pretend you didn't cry. Because on an Arctic whaler, storms are not rare emergencies. They are recurring characters. And they love a dramatic entrance. Ice cube in a blender. You are the cube. Sometimes the ice just closes. Slowly. Like a refrigerator door sealing shut around your ship. The vessel groans, wood cracking. It doesn't happen all at once. One morning you step on deck and notice that the sea looks thick. Yesterday it was waves and chunks of floating ice. Today it's like someone left the ocean overnight and it decided to freeze out of spite. Thin sheets form, linking flow to flow. They glitter prettily like the Arctic is saying, "Good morning, now you die." At lunch, the ice is closer. By dinner, it is around you. By breakfast tomorrow, it's under you, beside you, and sitting in your lap asking for rent. The ship begins to creak. Timbers complain like old men getting off couches. You hear faint cracks as the ice shifts and presses, slow and implacable. It is not dramatic, no Hollywood crunching, no explosion of splinters. Instead, it is a quiet, steady pressure, like the planet itself is leaning on your vessel with one elbow. Let S transition. The moment of realization. The captain stands on deck staring at the horizon. Someone asks, "Will we get free?" he says. Eventually, in the same tone a dentist says, "This might sting." That is never a good sign. The crew gathers around the rail to look. The ice stretches forever, flat, white, endless. No path, no water. The ocean you sailed on has become a parking lot of frozen death. Your ship is now a popsicle stick trapped in a desert no one asked for. At first, you wait. Maybe the wind will shift. Maybe the currents will move the flows. Maybe the ice will melt. Spoiler, it will not melt. You are now a resident. Let ease make a modern comparison. Imagine parallel parking in snow, then the snow grows around your car until you are sealed in place. And now you live in the parking lot with 30 men and 0 bathrooms that don't freeze. Days pass, then weeks, then months. The darkness returns. Snow piles along the rails. The ice rises and falls with hidden tides, grinding against the hull a low, eerie groan that sounds uncomfortably like a whale asking why you're still here. Let S transition. Life stops, but also continues. Since you're not going anywhere, the ship becomes a floating, non-floating winter cabin. Men shovel snow off the deck. They chip ice from ropes. They reinforce the hull to prevent crushing. In 1866, a ship trapped for half a year lost 13 men to cold, disease, and despair. The ice does not care. It just sits there, smug, cold, patient. Some captains ordered tents built on the ice. Yes, tents. On the ice. Because leaving the relatively warm wooden shelter to sleep on a frozen sheet is somehow an upgrade. Men hunt seal or polar bear for food because the salted beef and biscuits ran out 3 indignities ago. Fresh meat keeps scurvy from finishing the job. But it doesn't help morale when your dinner looks back at you with sad black eyes before meeting the tripod. Let us talk sound. The ice is never silent. It shifts, pops, and cracks like bubble wrap designed by Satan. At night, you lie in your bunk, listening to the hull complain as pressure builds. Every creak feels like a countdown. You imagine waking to the sound of the ship breaking, splitting like a walnut, and you being launched into the dark, freezing Arctic night. Sleep becomes optional. Fear is mandatory. Let S transition. Coping. You and your crewmates invent routines to stay sane. Cards, carving, storytelling. Some men hum or sing. Others stare into the dark, mentally filing complaints with God. The surgeon tends to frostbite, scurvy, infections, and seasonal existential dread. The cook tries to make seal stew taste less like sadness. No one succeeds. On better days, you explore the ice. You're tethered to the ship because wandering too far risks becoming a tragic anecdote. You find ridges where pressure has forced slabs upward, creating glittering mountains, mini Everests made of milky jade. They are beautiful and terrifying. Each ridge is proof of the forces threatening your hull. Let us transition. Ice diplomacy. Sometimes the ice slackens. Not much, just a teasing nudge. The crew cheers. The captain gives orders. Men take poles and push at the flows, trying to widen channels. Feels like trying to shovel a driveway during a blizzard with chopsticks. But it's all you have. Other times the ice tightens. The hull groans. Snow falls. The ship leans. Men exchange looks that say, well, this might be it. You prepare escape plans, sleds, packs, supplies. If the ship is crushed, you'll have to walk across the ice to someplace less deadly. The phrase less deadly is doing heavy lifting here. Let est. Talk about the psychological drift. In ports, everything had direction, purpose, streets, schedules. But trapped, time dissolves. You stop marking days. You stop expecting rescue. You stop thinking of the world beyond the ice. You become a small human in a big white prison. Eventually, maybe the spring thaw comes, ice loosens, water opens, the ship groans with relief. You chip away remaining flows, hoist sail, and glide carefully back into open sea. You are free, but you are changed. You lived inside the Arctic's freezer, and it will follow you home. In 1866, crews became stuck for half a year. Supplies dwindled, men died, and morale was somewhere between low and what if we just walk home. No one planned a 6-month camping trip on an ocean made of frozen knives. The ships hunting bowheads in the high Arctic found themselves surrounded by ice that quietly closed around them like a passive-aggressive roommate. One moment, water. The next, white, silent, inescapable. It was as if the Arctic took one look at the whalers and said, "No, you stay." Weeks passed, then months. At first, the men tried to stay optimistic. They told jokes, they played cards, they carved little trinkets, whales, ships, maybe that one weird guy who kept narrating things like he was writing a Victorian diary. But the jokes got old, the cards froze, and the trinkets looked back at them with the same expression everyone now wore. Please send help. Let's transition. Supplies. They dwindled quickly. Flour. Gone. Salted meat. Down to scraps. Hardtack. Always technically available. Like that food in your pantry you only eat during emotional emergencies. Seal and polar bear suddenly looked delicious. Not that they tasted good. Seal stew was the Arctic version of instant ramen. Comforting only because the alternative was starvation. The cook, if you can call him that, made everything stretch. A pot of stew became 3 meals. A strip of blubber was reused so many times it deserved overtime pay. Eventually, portions shrank until mealtime was more concept than experience. The men ate whatever they could find. Kelp, scraps, memories of bread. Fresh meat kept scurvy at bay, but barely. Joints ached. Gums swelled. A few teeth staged a dramatic exit. Someone joked that the worst part of scurvy was having your teeth fall out before you could bite the person who gave it to you. Let S talk sleep. Imagine sleeping in a frozen wooden box surrounded by ice that moans like it's haunted. The wind howls, the hull creaks, the ice shifts. Every sound makes you wonder if this is the night the ship will splinter like a breadstick. Men slept in layers of stiff wool, huddled under blankets that smelled like wet sheep and whale oil. Breathing created frost crystals on mustaches and eyelashes. Adorable if the situation weren't so utterly bleak. Now, the cold. The cold was the real captain. It ordered everything. It decided when you could work, eat, think, feel your toes. Frostbite prowled. Fingers and toes turned numb, then white, then black. Ears disappeared. There was no shame in losing body parts, just inconvenience. Someone might shrug and say, well, at least it was only the finger. You nod politely, pretending that losing an ear doesn't feel like a personal attack. Let S transition. Death. 13 men died that winter. Some from illness. Some from cold. Some simply slipped away. There were no grand speeches, no funerals with hymns and floral arrangements. Instead, the deceased were wrapped in cloth and taken out onto the ice, placed gently, and left to the Arctic. In darkness, in silence. The ice took everything from food to fingers to friends. It weighed on everyone. These weren't strangers, they were shipmates. They shared biscuits, worked ropes, told dirty jokes. Now they were gone, and the ice just stared. Morale took a nosedive. Men who once joked now muttered. Men who once sang now fell quiet. Someone suggested trying to walk home. No one knew where home was. Someone else suggested eating the cook. Everyone agreed seal was better. The most dangerous threat wasn't cold or hunger, it was helplessness. You could hunt, you could patch sails, but you could not fight the ice. It didn't rage, it didn't roar, it just stayed, implacable, eternal, a frozen landlord refusing to let you break lease. Let us transition. Routine became survival. Every day looked like wake up, shiver, eat something questionable, check ice, shovel snow, hunt seals, try not to cry. Men built low huts on the ice to escape the worst cold. They dragged gear across the frozen sea and stored what little fresh food they had. Some days the sky was clear and auroras danced above stunning reminders that beauty and terror often share scenery. Then finally, months later, the ice loosened. Not much, but enough. Water reappeared in channels ribboning through the white. The crew sprang to action. They cleared ice, repaired rigging, and by sheer stubbornness forced the ship free. When they finally broke out, they didn't cheer. They were too tired, too changed. They simply sailed silently with a haunted gratitude. Once back in civilization, no one could understand the scale of what the men had endured. How do you explain months without sun? How do you describe eating seal until you forgot other flavors existed? How do you articulate watching someone die quietly in the dark? You can tea. So most didn't tea. But those who survived carried the Arctic forever etched into their bones, into their stories, into their quiet. 6 months, 13 dead, a frozen world they'd never forget. Congratulations. You lived through the half-year ice sleepover. 33 ships were trapped in Alaska's ice in 1871. All were abandoned. Thousands scrambled across the frozen sea to reach rescue ships. This wasn't just a bad week. It was the kind of bad week that, if you wrote it in a diary, people centuries later would assume you were exaggerating for a dramatic effect. But no, this really happened. Let us set the scene. You're part of a bustling whaling fleet in the Chukchi Sea off Alaska. Bowheads have been spotted that season, and the oil money is good. So naturally, everyone keeps pushing farther and farther north, like bargain hunters heading toward the sail rack, even as the store catches fire. But the Arctic is patient. It waits. As summer fades toward autumn, the ice begins to consolidate. At first, the floes are distant, drifting lazily like they have no plans. Then they tighten, creeping toward the ships in slow-motion menace. Someone says, "We should head south." Someone else says, "We have time." This is always when things go wrong. Let S transition. The trap closes. Within days, shifting pack ice moves in like an avalanche of white. One morning you wake, step on deck, and realize the water is gone. Just gone. Your ship sits wedged among floes, locked in place like a trinket in a block of ice. The horizon is a sheet of frozen glass stretching forever, with 30-plus ships scattered like toys. Panic? Not yet. People are still optimistic. They try soaring channels, they pray for wind, they yell at the ice as though it listens. But the ice just squeezes harder. Let Air make a modern comparison. It is like parking your car at the mall and returning to find 40 cement trucks parked nose to tail around you. No amount of polite honking will get you out. Soon, reality sets in. No one is sailing anywhere. The captains meet, huddling in cold cabins, discussing options. They consult charts. They consult the sky. They consider setting the ships on turbo, but realize this feature has not been invented yet. The only real plan is survive. Let's transition. Abandon ship. As the ice thickens, the hulls begin to crack. Wood groans like it is dying because it is. There's no heroism in staying aboard a ship destined to be crushed like a cracker. So the captains gather supplies and issue the bleakest order possible. Leave everything. We walk. Men collect what little they can carry: food stores, firearms, tools, and occasionally personal treasures like letters or lucky trinkets. Everything else, barrels, tools, cargo, equipment, stays behind. Most importantly, the whale ship itself is abandoned. A floating fortune in oil, left. Years of work, gone. This was industrial-scale heartbreak. Then they begin the long march across the ice. Let S transition, the trek. Thousands of people, captains, sailors, cooks, boys barely old enough to shave, pull sleds over fractured ice. The surface is uneven, ridges like frozen mountain ranges, cracks wide enough to swallow a man, pools of frigid meltwater waiting for a wrong step. You trudge forward in stiff wool, pushing into stinging wind. The cold bites your cheeks, frost clings to your beard. Men help each other across fissures. The occasional dog's sled adds an air of dignity. Otherwise, progress is slow and miserable. Every night tents are erected on ice because home is now whatever patch of frozen sea you're not falling through. And yet here's the miracle. Almost everyone survived. Despite the conditions, despite the chaos, despite the fear, the crews made their way south across the frozen wastes to rescue ships waiting in open water near Point Belcher. The whaling fleet had radio technology from the future? No. They had hope, raw stubbornness, and some excellent Inuit guidance and seamanship. Let's transition. The ships themselves? Crushed, splintered, left to the ice. 33 vessels and industry's fortune was swallowed by the Arctic. Only one was later, found intact enough to be recovered. The rest vanished into history as though the ice simply didn't feel like sharing. The financial fallout was enormous. New England's whaling economy took a hit. Families lost livelihoods, investors panicked, and merchants howled. But nothing compared to what the crews endured. So yes, it was a bad week. A very bad week. Imagine being there. You have been hunting whales for months, chipping blubber in the cold, sleeping in damp bunks, dodging frostbite, and then suddenly the ocean freezes and you're told to walk across it. You're not trained for this. Nobody is trained for this. Yet you go, because the alternative is to become part of the Arctic's decor. Let us close with imagery. You're on the ice. A long line of men stretches across the flat white expanse. Everything behind you. The ships, the barrels, the tools is disappearing into frozen history. Ahead lies only more white and the faint hope of rescue. And you walk, one step at a time. Thousands of tiny footsteps scratching across a world that never wanted you there. It's a miracle so many made it. It's a tragedy so much was lost. It's the Arctic saying, I decide who stays. A very bad week? Yeah. Like lost your wallet, house burned down, also aliens invaded bad. You crawl into your too tiny bunk listening to the try-works crackle, ice grind the hull, and someone nearby quietly sob. On paper, nighttime is when you rest. That's adorable. In reality, Arctic whaling nighttime is a chaotic blend of damp wool, existential dread, and sounds that make you reconsider your belief in benign spirits. There is no sunrise to signal sleep time, no sunset to reassure you that you've made it through another day. There is only darkness, and the hope your eyelids will cooperate. You wriggle into your bunk more like a coffin that someone forgot to bury, trying not to elbow the guy beside you. Your knees do not fit. Your feet hang off the end, where they serve as a small snack counter for the ship's mice. The blanket you pull over yourself is damp, itchy, and smells like sadness marinated in whale grease. Still, it is the warmest thing you own. Let us transition. Noise. Noise is the soundtrack of sleeping on a whaler. The try-works fire pops and hisses above deck like a demon learning to cook. The ice presses against the hull and releases sudden, violent cracks sharp enough to make you think the ship is splitting open. Men snore, cough, mutter, and occasionally scream. Nightmares are common. Therapy has not been invented. Someone moans about frostbite. Someone else whispers prayers. The man above you rolls over, dropping hardtack crumbs onto your face like culinary confetti. If you are lucky, you fall asleep anyway. If not, you stare into darkness and pretend you don't hear the ship creaking like it wants to discuss your life choices. Now your brain begins its nighttime activity, cataloguing everything that could kill you. Storms, ice, cold, frostbite, disease, whales, boredom. Yes, even boredom can kill, if not physically, then spiritually. Let us make a modern comparison. Imagine trying to sleep in a damp broom closet during an earthquake while someone microwaves fish nearby. That's the vibe. Some nights, the Arctic wind shrieks against the mast like somebody playing a haunted flute. The whole ship sways, rising and falling on invisible waves. You squeeze your eyes shut and try to remember what land feels like, what warmth feels like, what privacy felt like, way back before you voluntarily became sardine-shaped. Let S transition, staying warm. You tuck your hands between your thighs. You pull your blanket up so high you look like a disgruntled caterpillar. Sometimes you share body heat with another sailor, not romantically, just for survival. Nobody talks about it afterward. If you get desperate, you sleep closer to the try-works, where the heat can almost, sort of, nearly thaw your fingers. The risk of catching fire is non-zero, but being warm feels like winning. Some men sleep in their clothes, some sleep in all their clothes. Not because it is cozy, but because removing layers is like divorcing your only heat source. You've learned that wool is less a material and more a lifestyle. Let us transition. Dreams. You dream about food, warm bread, oranges, soup that doesn't smell like seal regrets. You dream about home soft beds, your mother's voice, sunlight. Then you wake up still on the ship, still in the dark, still inhaling air that tastes like the inside of a whale's armpit. If nightmares visit, they tend to be thematic. Falling into frozen water, being trapped under ice, chasing whales that turn around and chase you back. You jolt awake, heart hammering, and slam your head on the bunk above you. The guy above curses. You curse back. Bond strengthened. Some nights the ship is quiet. Those are the worst. Silence means everyone is listening for danger. Ice shifts beneath you. The hull groans. You imagine yourself floating inside a wooden coffin, drifting over a world that wants you gone. Sometimes you hear laughter, but it's that weird, too tired kind of laughter, slightly hysterical. Men telling half jokes that end in sighs. Someone plays a wheezy accordion. Someone else hums an old song that makes you think of sunlight, which is rude. Let's transition. Personal rituals. A few men pray before sleep. Others sharpen knives. Comforting. Someone reads a battered Bible. Someone else carves tiny whales out of scraps of bone. You trace the lines in your wooden bunk, imagining there are roads leading anywhere else. You promise yourself that when you get home, if you get home, you will never complain about lumpy mattresses again. There is always that one guy who falls asleep instantly and snores like a walrus auditioning for opera. Everyone hates him. Eventually, fatigue overpowers fear. You drift into half-sleep, your body curled tight to conserve warmth. The ship keeps moving, creaking, breathing, alive. The ocean hums. Beneath, somewhere on deck, a watchman stamps his feet and whispers curses at the wind. You sleep lightly, ears searching for danger even in dreams. A sudden crack wakes you. Ice shifting. Just ice. You tell your brain to stand down and sink again into darkness. This is nighttime on your Arctic whaler. Rest is not guaranteed. Sleep is a negotiation. Comfort is a myth. But you push through, because morning will come. Or, well, whatever counts as morning in a place where the sun forgot to show up. During downtime, you play cards, carve bones, write letters to your future self, who may not survive. Leisure on an Arctic whaler is like a clearance aisle at a sad grocery store. Nothing you want, everything you tolerate, and you're just trying to kill time until your next meal of salted disappointment. But surprising no one, you do find things to do, because when the sun refuses to rise and the ocean is frozen solid, Anything that isn't a work automatically counts as entertainment. Let's transition. Cards, the national pastime of nowhere. There is always a game underway. Men squat on crates dealing sticky, oil-stained cards that smell like they've been marinated in whale juice. You gamble for tobacco, candy, bragging rights, anything. Some games get competitive enough that a guy will throw his mitten at someone's face like an emotional grenade. You learn 3 valuable life lessons. Nobody plays fair. Everyone cheats. You will lose. It's okay. You blame the cold, or the cards, or the guy across from you who looks like he's psychic. When you do win, the sensation is euphoric, like warm socks or finding a lemon. This lasts 15 seconds before someone calls you lucky and demands a rematch. Let S transition. Carving, the original fidget toy. Whalebone scrimshaw is the classic whaler hobby. You sit with a sharp blade, scraping designs into ivory or baleen. Whales, ships, flowers. Your crush back home, who probably forgot you exist. Some men are surprisingly artistic. Others make lumpy sea monsters that look like potatoes with dorsal fins. Both get equal admiration because there is no yelp out here. Carving keeps your hands moving and your brain focused on something other than the fact that your toes are staging a silent protest. It's soothing, too, like whittling away your fear one shaving at a time. You trade pieces, brag about technique, and pretend you're leaving behind a legacy that isn't just frostbite and emotional trauma. Let S transition. Writing, the original cry journal. You write letters to your future self who may or may not survive the trip. They say things like, "Dear future me, I hope you still have ears," or "Tell mother I said hi." Also, please invent central heating. Sometimes you write to loved ones, sweet, sentimental notes about missing home, warm bread, and sunlight. Other times your letters devolve into rants about the guy who snores, the food situation, or how whale guts got inside your socks again. The sad part, you're not even sure these letters will be mailed, but writing gives you a sense of control, like you're tethering yourself to a world beyond this icy nightmare. Let Essie transition. Music, janky symphonies of survival. Someone always has an accordion that wheezes like it is dying of melancholy. Another guy shows off a one-string fiddle that sounds like a cat in distress. Yet somehow these noises count as music. Men sing along a mix of shanties, hymns, and whatever songs their brains half remember from warmer places. The rhythm helps. It warms your heart a little, provides company, and masks the sound of the hull complaining outside. Let S transition. Reading. Optional if you're illiterate. Books are precious. Someone might have smuggled a Bible, a novel, or a book of bad jokes. You read something, anything, to escape. If you run out of reading material, you reread. By month 3, you know the Bible well enough to argue plot holes. By month 6, you are reading the rope-making manual because it reminds you of narrative structure. Let S transition. Chats gossip. Primitive TikTok. Rumors spread like scurvy. Someone saw a polar bear. Someone saw a ghost. Someone fell through the ice and didn't enjoy the experience. Crew drama is never ending, because put 30 poorly bathed men into a wooden box for months, and you get enough drama to fill a season of reality TV. You talk about home, food, and women who may or may not be waiting. You complain about the cold, and the work, and the lack of citrus. You fantasize about retirement even though you are 19, and retirement means not dead. Let S transition. Exercise, unintentional. Occasionally, someone suggests stretching or walking the deck. This counts as exercise. Mostly, though, movement is reserved for shivering, which burns calories like CrossFit but with more misery. Let S transition. Nonsense activities, because why not? You hold spit freeze competitions. You sculpt ice into tiny whales. Someone trains a ship's cat to high five. You stage sled races on the deck and immediately regret it. Boredom breeds creativity, or more realistically, stupidity. Let's transition. Philosophical hours. Some nights you stare at the horizon and wonder why you are here, why anyone is here, if whales dream, if you'll ever see a vegetable again. Existential dread hits different when your view is endless ice. In these quiet moments, the ship feels strangely peaceful. The stars shimmer, the aurora flickers. For a heartbeat, the Arctic isn't punishing, it's just beautiful. Then someone yells, "We are out of hardtack!" And the mood dies. So yes, there is leisure. It is weird, it is limited, it's deeply, creatively depressing. But it keeps you sane, one carved whale and cursed accordion song at a time. When supplies run low, you hunt seals. It's messy, cold, and absolutely necessary. Let us be honest, this isn't Whole Foods. You're not browsing the aisles looking for organic arugula. You're trudging across frozen ocean, armed with a club or rifle, trying to convince a blubbery creature that you deserve to live more than it does. The moral calculus is unclear. The hunger is not. Seal hunting begins the same way most terrible decisions on this voyage begin. With starvation, salted meat has vanished. Hardtack tastes like sawdust dipped in regret. Men whisper rumors of citrus not because it's coming, but because it once existed. So the captain sighs and says the Arctic equivalent of, "Fine, go grocery shopping." You bundle up, grab a weapon, and step onto the ice. Let us transition. The conditions. Cold doesn't describe it. Cold would be polite. This is the kind of cold that insults your ancestors. It cuts through wool, bone, spirit. The sea is an endless field of ice slabs stacked like poorly arranged tiles. Everything is white. Sky, white. Horizon, white. Your future, mostly white with a strong chance of doom. You spot seals lounging by ice holes, just chilling, literally. They look cute, like aquatic dogs, until you remember your teeth are loose from scurvy and dinner is that way. Sneaking closer is hard because ice crunches loudly under your boots. Seals hear you coming and plop back into the water like nope, but eventually you get close enough. A club descends. Dinner obtained. It is brutal, sad, and crucial. You don't celebrate, you just sigh with relief and drag the meat back to the ship, already imagining stew that tastes like sadness but warm sadness. Let's transition. Polar bears. You do not want to hunt polar bears. Polar bears want to hunt you. They are large, powerful, and seem constantly annoyed that you are trespassing on their icy lawn. But when seals thin out, desperate men make dangerous choices. Hunting a polar bear feels like deciding to fight a truck. You aim your rifle, hands shaking because fingers haven't been warm since June. The bear stands, towering. It roars. You question everything. Then hopefully someone shoots accurately and the great beast falls, and you get meat, fat, fur, and another story to traumatize future grandchildren. If you miss well, good luck. Let's make a modern comparison. Imagine running out of groceries and deciding to hunt a grizzly in a Costco parking lot. That the vibe. Let us transition. Processing. Back on board, the meat is butchered. The smell is intense raw fat mixed with seawater, sweat, and fear. The deck becomes a slippery horror show. Men cut thick red chunks and haul them to the cook, who tries to make something edible out of them. Spoiler, he fails. But compared to starvation, polar bear stew is shockingly luxurious. Fat is especially valuable. It burns in lamps. It warms your body. It reminds you of the sun, which you have not seen in weeks. Let us transition. The hunt hidden bonus. Scurvy insurance. Fresh meat helps prevent scurvy. Not as effective as lemons, sure, but lemons have the decency to not exist anywhere near here. So a chunk of seal is basically a vitamin supplement. You choke it down, imagining it's something pleasant, like bread. Let's transition. Dangers beyond the obvious. The ice is treacherous. One wrong step and you're in the water, flailing in a death milkshake that kills in minutes. The cold shocks the lungs so violently you can't breathe. If someone grabs you fast, you survive. If not well, your obituary will be one sentence. Fell through. Sometimes the ice shifts beneath your feet. Cracks open. Everyone panics. You sprint across moving ice like you're auditioning for a nightmare circus. The only thing worse than hunting seals is hunting seals while the earth tries to eject you. Let S transition. Teamwork, sort of. You don't hunt alone. Usually 2 or 3 of you go together partly for safety, partly for moral support, partly because you need someone to blame. Someone slips, someone curses, someone argues about seal etiquette. Half the time your group nearly dies. The other half, you succeed and drag back enough meat to keep everyone alive for a few more miserable weeks. Men bond over this. Shared trauma is powerful. You don't learn each other as birthdays, but you absolutely learn who screams the loudest when a polar bear charges. Let S transition. Ethics, lightly. Do you feel bad for killing seals and bears? Occasionally. Then you remember your stomach is empty and your toes are turning black. You whisper an apology to the Arctic Food Committee and move on. Let ES transition. Back aboard. As you eat, you realize the meat tastes fine. Sort of. The fat keeps you warm. The protein keeps you walking. You tell jokes to distract from the fact that dinner has sad eyes. You survive another day. Hunting becomes routine. Not fun. Not thrilling. Just another job in a world where everything is cold, dangerous, and slightly absurd. But hey, at least you are not hungry. Snow foxes appear, mischievous and adorable. Birds swoop down to steal scraps. At first, you think the Arctic is empty, just wind, darkness, and your own regrets. But then you start noticing creatures wandering around like they own the place. And honestly, they do. Everything out here has adapted to the cold in ways you absolutely have not. They are soft, fluffy, weirdly confident, and ready to ruin your day. Let us transition. Snow foxes, tiny fashionable thieves. Arctic foxes look like they've just stepped off a winter runway, white fur, cute faces, tiny paw prints in the snow. You see one and think, I want to pet it. No, bad idea. These little gremlins are professional opportunists. They skitter around camp, tails up, looking for dropped seal scraps or unattended boots stuffed with the only warm socks you own. They are silent, they are fast, they judge you. Sometimes they follow your hunting party, hoping you succeed so they can sneak the leftovers. They peek over ice ridges, staring like furry auditors. At night, you hear them digging outside the hull, trying to steal anything that might be remotely edible, including, possibly, a crewman missing toes. They're adorable. They are punishing. They'll absolutely eat your leather gear and then stare you in the eyes while chewing. Let us transition. Birds. Winged menaces with zero manners. If you're butchering a whale or seal on deck and, spoiler, your aerial looters begin to show up. Gulls, terns, ravens. The Arctic S version of hungry paparazzi. They circle overhead, shrieking insults and dropping suspicious gifts. When blubber flies, they swoop, diving for scraps with the chaotic precision of drunk acrobats. They were bold. They were loud. They have no concept of personal space. Sometimes one lands right beside you, the bird version of "what you eatin'?" You wave it away and it just stands there blinking slowly like it's thinking do it again. I dare you. Some sailors swear ravens understand the situation watching, remembering faces, deciding who they like. You don't know if that's true, but you do know that one keeps dropping bits of ice near your bunk window, as if trying to get your attention. It is unsettling. Let S transition. Whales, enormous, gentle, pleased on, tip the boat giants. You see bowheads, thick, black, ancient. They glide through the deep like moving islands. When you spot one, there's a moment of awe before the hunt begins. Their long baleen plates hang like curtains. Their massive heads break the surface with slow, steady force. They are peaceful until you chase them. Then they revengeful. Sometimes one surfaces right next to the boat without warning, so close you could reach out and pat it. Though that would be a bad idea. Its eye meets yours. You feel judged. It's like it's saying, "Really? You again?" Let S transition. Walrus. The grumpy uncles of the ice. Walruses. Giant blobs with tusks the size of your forearm. Lounge on floes like they're at a spa. They look sleepy. They are not. If startled, they lunge. Tusks flashing. Bodies moving with terrifying speed for animals built like beanbags. One unlucky sailor tells a story. He got too close. The walrus woke up. He ran. The walrus chased. He lived. His underwear did not. Let S transition. Polar bears. Majestic nightmares. You respect them. You fear them. They are the boss level of Arctic wildlife. They stroll the ice with regal confidence, sniffing for food. You. Seal organs. Also you. Or anything delicious. Always you. They are enormous, taller than you, standing upright and built like muscle-wrapped refrigerators. You see one and immediately rethink every decision that led you here. Sometimes they wander near the ship, drawn by the smell of blubber. Men scramble for rifles. You watch from the rail as the bear sniffs, snorts, and leaves unless it doesn't. If it stays, you consider writing your will on a biscuit. Let S transition. Seals. Chubby sea sausages with deception in their heart. When relaxed, seals are cute big eyes, round faces, funny noises. But they're clever and fast. They nap on floes, sandwiched against other seals like they were gossiping. When danger comes, they dive into holes, vanishing instantly, leaving you to swear loudly while the fox behind you giggles. Let S transition. The ecosystem. Everything out here is connected. Whales feed the crew. Blubber feeds the fire. Scraps feed birds. Scraps of scraps feed foxes. Polar bears feed themselves because they fear nothing. The ice is alive quietly, brutally alive. You share space with creatures whose ancestors have been here longer than your family has had indoor plumbing. You're the newcomer, the visitor, the weirdo in wool pants. Let transition. Beauty terror. Sometimes when the sun is gone and the aurora dances, foxes skitter across the snow, leaving blue shadows. Birds perch on ice hummocks, silent and still. A whale surfaces in the dark, exhaling a misty cloud that glows green in the lights above. For a moment, everything is peaceful. Then a polar bear shows up and everyone screams. The Arctic teaches you something important. Beauty does not mean safety. Cute does not mean harmless. Soft fur hides sharp teeth. Still, sharing the ice with these creatures is humbling. They belong here. You're just trying not to get eaten. Fixing a broken mast in warm weather? Hard. Fixing it while your hammer is basically an icicle? Impossible. It always starts with something small, maybe a cracked spar, a shredded sail, or a rope that finally snaps after the 500th time it's been asked to do the job of 2 ropes. On a normal voyage, repairs are just tedious. On an Arctic whaler, repairs are a punishment invented by the universe for reasons unknown. Tools freeze, wood splits. Your fingers feel like raisins dipped in liquid nitrogen. And everything takes 10 times longer. Let's transition. Cold versus tools. Cold winds. You grab a hammer. Your glove sticks to it. You consider crying. The metal is so cold it feels angry. Nails freeze to the deck. Saws bite sluggishly through icy wood. You swing your hammer, trying to sound competent, and realize you can't feel your hands anymore. Someone tries to warm nails in their mouth. This ends badly. Someone else tries to thaw rope by sitting on it. This works slightly better but creates emotional questions no one wants to answer. Ropes stiffen into frozen noodles. Knots freeze solid. You chip away at ice on the rigging with a hatchet and pray you don't accidentally remove your own fingers. Every movement hurts. Every sound reminds you the ship is one crack away from, guess we live here now, let's transition. The deck, your workplace ice rink. Repairs happen on deck because you need space and light. If the sun is willing to show up for work, it usually isn't he. The planks are slick, coated in ice and whale goo. One wrong step and you're sliding across the deck like a depressed figure skater. Nobody applauds. Men crawl on hands and knees to stay steady. Tools skitter away, disappearing through scuppers with mocking plink noises. You lash yourself to the rail so you don't fall overboard, because the ocean is right there, cold, hungry, and not picky about snacks. Let us transition. Sails, fabric popsicles. Canvas stiffens in the cold, cracking like old leather. You climb the rigging because apparently you like danger to knock ice off sheets and lines. Every step up the mast is a gamble. One slip, one numb finger, one broken foothold, and you are taking the express elevator down. When you finally wrestle down a damaged sail, it lands on deck with all the grace of a frozen carpet. Mending it requires needles that stick to your fingers and thread that snaps when it gets moody. You stitch anyway, because the alternative is drifting helplessly, while the ship becomes modern art in an ice gallery. Let S transition. Woodwork, the Arctic S comedy hour. Wood swells, shrinks and cracks. Planks split, masts protest. You drill holes that freeze shut while you're still drilling. Caulking becomes an Olympic event. Stuff tar and oakum into seams while wind tries to steal every tool and snow tries to bury the deck. The tar is so stiff it needs to be heated near the try-works just to become soft enough to smear. You emerge smelling like burnt despair. Someone attempts to use a hand plane. It shrieks against the frozen grain like it is being murdered. Everyone winces. Meanwhile, the ship groans beneath your feet, reminding you that if you don't fix this now, the Arctic will peel you open like a sardine can. Let SS transition. Teamwork, shared suffering. Builds character, allegedly. Repairs require multiple hands, preferably attached to people not yet frostbitten. You and your crewmates huddle around broken spars, taking turns hammering because no one can feel their fingers for more than 90 seconds at a time. Communication devolves into grunts, swears, and the occasional, "I think my ear fell off." The carpenter is the real star. He gets no glory, little sleep, and the privilege of fixing everything that breaks, including morale. He swings his tools with weary resignation, muttering a litany of complaints that border on poetry. Let S transition. The try-works, the only heating system. If you're desperate, you warm tools by the try-works. The heat is real, but so is the danger. Sparks, boiling oil, slippery footing. One wrong step and you're a part of the soup, but it's the only place where metal doesn't try to frostbite you just for picking it up. You dash in, warm your hammer, then sprint back to your task before the tool refreezes. You repeat, many times. You question your life choices. Let S transition. Success. Kind of. Eventually, something gets fixed. Maybe the mast is reinforced. Maybe the sail is patched. Maybe the rope is less frozen than before. You stand back, admire your handiwork, and realize the ice is shifting again. Something else breaks. Repairs on an Arctic whaler are not projects. They are a lifestyle. Let S compare to modern life. Imagine trying to fix your roof in January while your tools are frozen, your ladder is haunted, the wind screams in your face, and your house is floating. Also, you're hungry, tired, and someone nearby is cooking whale parts. That's the vibe. Let's transition. Aftermath. You limp back below deck, hands numb, face raw, tools forgotten where they fell. You flop into your bunk and think, at least it is done. Until tomorrow when the Arctic decides something else should break. Repairs never end. They just pause to catch their breath. Some whalers overwintered at shore stations, wooden huts that make your closet look luxurious. Doors freeze shut. Yes, while most crews stayed aboard their floating box of misery, some lucky whalers got to spend winter in housing. Housing here means tiny wooden structures perched on wind-blasted beaches where polar bears outnumber amenities and comfort is theoretical. You leave the ship thinking this will be an upgrade for walls, a roof, maybe a floor, only to discover that the hut is basically a wooden fridge someone forgot to plug in. Let S transition. Your new home. The station consists of a few low huts hammered together from driftwood, abandoned timber, and sheer desperation. The walls don't meet the floor. The floor doesn't meet its moral obligations. Wind whistles through the cracks, offering free, constant air conditioning you did not ask for. A thin chimney pokes out the roof, which leaks, but only when the weather is bad, so always. Inside you find bunks stacked like miserable bunk cakes. The air smells like wet wool, damp seal skin, smoke, and the lingering dreams of the previous occupants, none of whom were happy. The walls are covered in frost, so you decorate with whale bones and optimism. Mostly bones, let S transition. Temperature, thermal ennui. The cold outside, horrifying. The cold inside, slightly less horrifying. A small stove anchors the room. It burns seal blubber, driftwood, or anything that looks vaguely flammable. The heat is intense within a 3-inch radius, then disappears into the ether. You crowd around it, hands outstretched, trying to thaw fingers, toes, hopes. Turn away, and your backside freezes. Turn again, and your face freezes. There is no winning, only rotation. Doors freeze shut regularly. Occasionally the inside freezes too, and you must chip your way out like you're hatching from an egg. Someone jokes that you're being reborn into suffering. No one laughs. Let's transition. Food. Arctic degustation menu. Meals are whatever you can hunt or thaw. Seal, polar bear, fish. Repeat. If supplies were poorly planned or eaten early, you ration scraps until soup becomes water that once met a seal. Pots hang above the stove bubbling with unidentifiable stew. The steam condenses on the rafters, forming sealing icicles that periodically break off and assault the diners. Real dinner theatre. Salt is a luxury. Vegetables are mythology. Crumbs are currency. You eat in layers, clothes on, gloves on, hat on, because taking them off means losing degrees of warmth you can't get back. Nobody tastes their food anymore. Taste buds froze months ago. Let S transition. Daily chores. You hunt, you chop ice, you gather driftwood, you patch the hut S holes. Then wind creates new holes, restoring cosmic balance. Everything breaks. Tools freeze stiff. Nails snap. Rope turns into rigid spaghetti. Repairs require patience, teamwork, and profanity. You start conversations with sentences like, "Hey, can you hold this wall while I nail the door back to existence?" And no one blinks. Let us transition. Nightlife. Entertainment is very casual. Men tell stories, play cards, argue about nonsense, or stare into the stove until their minds wander somewhere warmer, like memory. Someone sings, Someone else whittles. Most sit quietly, listening to the wind batter the walls like an angry landlord. Sleep is a group activity. You pile into bunks like penguins, sharing warmth, breath, and complaints. The room is dark except for the orange glow of the stove. Outside, the wind howls, ice groans, a fox screams. Someone mutters, 5 stars would winter again. No one believes him. Let S transition. Wildlife cameos. Polar bears show up first. They sniff around, investigating. Your hut like a realtor. You stay inside, silent, wondering if the wall between you and 1,000 pounds of fur and doom is more plaster or hope. Arctic foxes scurry around, stealing scraps and boots. Birds loiter on the roof, squawking at all hours like terrible neighbours. You, the human, feel wildly out of place. Let's transition. Darkness, eternal mood lighting. Months of night blanket the station. You forget the sun exists. Time dissolves. You mark days by meals or by whose turn it is to scrape frost off the ceiling. The lack of daylight eats at your mind. Men grow quiet, voices lower. Everyone becomes introspective in a way that screams, "We need therapy," but it hasn't been invented. Sometimes, the aurora dances overhead green, silent, unreal. You bundle up, step outside, stare at sky ribbons waving like cosmic laundry, and feel something like peace. Then you notice a bear track in the snow and hurry back inside. Let S transition. The big question, why are you here? You ask yourself daily. Money? Adventure? Bad decisions? All 3. Whale oil means profit. Overwintering means staying close to hunting ground so you can strike early when the ice retreats. Logically, it's good business. Emotionally, it's lunacy. Let's transition, escape. Spring arrives slowly, like it's hungover. The ice thaws, the sea moans. You repair the boats, again, and prepare to leave your wooden freezer. You pack up, take one last look, and say something sentimental like, "I will not miss this. U1T ever." But you'll remember it because you survived an Airbnb where everything wanted you dead. And somehow, that is impressive. Indigenous Inuit occasionally trade with you, offering furs, knowledge, and a very subtle, "Why are you here?" It is a fair question. They've lived here for thousands of years. You've been here for about 14 minutes and have already frozen multiple body parts. When the Inuit arrive, quiet, calm, expertly dressed in clothing that actually works, your entire crew experiences something unusual. Humility. Let S transition. First contact. You look ridiculous. The Inuit appear from the shimmering white horizon with sleds, dogs, and clothing so well made it makes your wool layers look like damp trash bags. They move across the ice smoothly, efficiently, like they understand physics on a level you do not. You try to look confident, but your face is windburned, your gloves are mismatched, and you are wearing exactly 3 shirts, 2 jackets, and the expression of a man about to burst into tears. They greet you politely. You respond by shivering aggressively. You attempt conversation gestures, broken words, possibly interpretive dance. They are patient because you are clearly a confused houseplant of a human being. Let S transition. Trading. The ultimate reality check. Eventually you trade. They offer furs, actual warm furs from animals they hunted on purpose, rather than accidentally became dinner. They also bring meat, tools, and sometimes carved items that make your scrimshaw look like you did it blindfolded with a spoon. In exchange, you offer metal tools, knives, needles, and beads. They examine your goods with a professional eye, as if deciding whether these items are worth their time. Spoiler, they usually are. Metal is hard to get here. You brought metal. 1 point for you. Food trading happens too. They provide seal meat fresh, not the kind that has been boiled into sadness stew. You give them hardtack, which they politely accept even though it tastes like a wooden shoe. Let us transition. Learning. Please teach me how to not die. You notice right away that the Inuit know everything. Where the safest ice is, where seals surface, how weather changes, which direction to travel even when the world is pitch black. You ask questions, they answer. You take notes. It doesn't matter your ink freezes. They show you techniques for clothing, hunting, shelter, and navigation. They demonstrate how to build snow houses that block the wind far better than your sad attempt at a log hut. You try copying their methods. You fail spectacularly. They do not laugh out loud. They simply fix it. Let us transition. Fashion. They win. Easily. Inuit clothing is warm, flexible, and beautifully made. Fur layers keep heat in and moisture out. Their boots alone are masterpieces, comfy, waterproof, and better than anything your country will invent for another 300 years. You, meanwhile, are wearing wool socks in leather boots stuffed with straw and regret. When you see the difference, you think, we're the ones writing the travel journals. Really? Let's transition. Dog sleds, Formula One, Arctic Edition. The sled dogs are the closest thing to celebrities you'll meet up here. Thick fur, sharp eyes, and about 300 more competence than any human on your ship. They pull sleds swiftly across the ice, making your stumbling snowshoe efforts look like toddler practice. At first, you envy the drivers. Then you realize dog sledding is an art. The Inuit guide their teams with tiny verbal cues. You try, and the dogs ignore you completely, dragging you into a snowbank like an unimportant suitcase. Let S transition. Hospitality respect. When storms worsen or ice traps you, the Inuit sometimes shelter you. They share knowledge and food. They don't have to. They just do. Their culture values respect, cooperation, and adaptation. For them, surviving the Arctic is normal life. For you, it's a heroic struggle to remember how to feel your toes. You listen as they talk about the land, its seasons, its animals, its spirits. You realize they see this place not as hostile, but as home. You feel small and slightly foolish. Let S transition. Morality perspective. Your crew hunts whales for profit. The Inuit hunt animals for survival. They use everything: meat, blubber, skin, bone. Nothing is wasted. Their work is respectful, efficient, rooted in tradition. Your work is messier, industrious, yes. But when the Inuit see you toss aside scraps or spill oil, their expression says politely, you are doing too much for too little. You know they were right. Let's transition. Questions you ask yourself after they leave. Why are you here? Why did you think you could handle this? Who told you wool was enough? Is money worth frostbite? The Inuit disappear back into the white, leaving you with newfound survival tips and a quiet desire to rethink your life choices. Their sled tracks fade. Their calm competence lingers. You look around at your shivering shipmates. No one speaks. Everyone is thinking the same thing. We are the amateurs here. Let S transition. Legacy. Years later, sailors will remember these encounters with awe. The Inuit saved lives by sharing food, knowledge, and the most important lesson of all. The Arctic is not conquered. It is negotiated with, and even then, only sometimes. You warm your hands over a guttering fire, staring into the darkness. Somewhere, a dog barks. Somewhere, a fox skitters. You pull your thin coat tighter and think of the people who walked across this land with confidence, grace, and warm feet. You wish you'd asked for boots.